You've got questions. I've got answers. Well, I'll pretend to have answers. Let's talk some Chiefs, guys. Welcome to the Chief in the North Thursday Mailbag Edition. I am Seth Kaiser, the Chief in the North. It's a dreary, dark, cold day up here in Minnesota, and it's going to start snowing soon. So let's try to distract ourselves from that. As ever, I am every week. I'm here to answer some mailbag questions from you wonderful, wonderful people. As always, you provided me with a bunch of them. We're going to get right to it in a second. First, a reminder, we do this every week. If you have mailbag questions, put them in the comment section below, not in the live stream. I think most people figured out by now that while this is live streaming, I'm not actually live. It's a bit of a paradox, if you will. That's not what a paradox is, but that's okay. It's much easier for me to find questions if you put them in the comment section below. Put a bunch of question marks before it to make it easier to see. I'll give those ones priority. And then every Wednesday on Twitter, I'll put out a tweet saying, hey, give me some mailbag questions, and I'll respond to those as well. Make sure, as you do, as I always have to say, well, I don't have to, but I feel like it's the one thing I do that's actually borderline YouTube professionalist, is tell people to make sure to like, subscribe, share, I don't know, play on their Facebook page. I have no idea. All the things that you're supposed to do with a YouTube video to help it out, because Ryan works incredibly hard on this channel, as does the rest of the crew here. I just kind of show up and mail it in, but the rest of them work incredibly hard. So you should support them in everything that they're doing. Let's get to some mailbag questions, some good ones this week. I'm excited. Let's do this. We're starting off with some of the ones from last week's mailbag that were put in the comments. See, like I said, they get priority. I'm a man of my word. Quentin Ruckman asks, thoughts on the progression of the young secondary this year? Obviously, McDuffie hasn't seen enough of the field quite yet due to injury, but Williams and Watson seem to be in good position most of the time considering their age. Quentin talks about the fact that they haven't always been able to finish plays, but he has a feeling that the interceptions are going to start coming in droves as the ball skills improve. So I don't know about the interceptions coming in droves. Interceptions, it's a fascinating thing. Those are often a result of either bad quarterback play, coverage fooling the quarterback, or pass rush. Those are often where you see interception opportunities, and opportunities are really a big part of closing in those, in terms of actually collecting the interceptions rather than passes defensed. Because a pass defense, that means you made a good play on the ball, but the ball was in a good enough position where you didn't have the ability to actually catch it. Now, some guys just let it go through their hands. L'Jarius Sneed had that happen at the end of the game against the Titans. Of course, it didn't matter because it was fourth down. But sometimes you're in perfect position. But that was a good example. The coverage completely fooled Malik Willis. He made the throw, and that put Sneed in perfect position. That's often where you see interceptions come from, is the coverage fooling the quarterback, or just poor quarterback play in general. A really inerrant throw or a foolish throw, whether it's a completely inaccurate one that goes in a direction that to the defender rather than the receiver, or something that just should have been thrown in the first place. So I really like what the secondary's shown. Obviously, the first game back, and this is where, they had a really good performance against the Titans, but that said, the Titans don't exactly have a receiving group to write home about. So it's going to be interesting moving forward. McDuffie looked excellent out there, but again, the quality of competition isn't high, and the types of routes they were running, they weren't throwing the ball a lot. You're going to learn a lot more about Trent McDuffie against the Jags. Even though Trevor Lawrence hasn't been incredible this year, he's a really talented quarterback who makes some very good throws. Their receiving core, while again, it's not terribly dangerous, it's significantly better than the Titans. So we're going to learn more about McDuffie, especially this week. But I will say I'm really happy with how they've come along. The fact that they were comfortable getting rid of Rashad Fenton, who has, generally speaking, he's had a down year this year, but he's been a league average cornerback for them. And similar to like what I say about Andrew Wiley, that sounds maybe like an insult, but it's not. It's important to have guys like that on your team. And that's why it surprised me that they let Fenton go. Some part of me wonders if he requested a trade, but these things, the Chiefs are pretty tight-lipped about them. So the fact that they're willing to do that demonstrates their comfort with it. Watson was able to see the field immediately due to his comfort in zone coverage, due to his comfort passing off receivers, his seeming understanding of breaking down route concepts. Williams has taken a little longer, and his lack of comfort in those areas was evident, especially during preseason. Now he's getting more and more run, which tells me they think that he's taken that next step. And I also haven't like seen snaps where he's like obviously out of position or something like that. And that makes me think that he has taken that next step. So I'm comfortable with where they're at. I'm nervous moving forward because, relying on, so many on three rookies to be three of your top four quarters. Woo, you can tell this is the mornings, and you can tell that it is a dreary, just gross day outside. Relying on rookies for three of your top four corners, that's not good business all the time. But we'll see how it goes against the Jags. And then kind of moving forward, every week they should be getting more and more experience. And the physical talent is definitely there for all of them. And McDuffie so far has put out nothing but really, really, really good tape. We'll see if that continues. Lev Mass asks me, we live in an alternate timeline where the overtime rules were changed, but in a totally different way. Both teams get a chance at the ball. However, your offense must have all its receiving core, including your tight ends, and its running back positions filled with defense-designated players. Do you think our fearless quarterback could lead a backfield of Willie Gay and Bolton, and of course Colin at fullback, and receiver room of Thornhill, Williams, McDuffie to an overtime victory? Who would you put out there? I think Trent McDuffie would be a heck of a slot receiver starting off. But I think the Chiefs would have an advantage over a lot of teams because of the size of their cornerback group. A guy like Josh Williams, there's not a lot of teams with a guy that's running around there that's 6'2", 6'3", and can run the way he can. So I think I think Thornhill's long speed, he'd be a great deep threat, and he's got really soft hands and great ball skills. So I think the Chiefs would be okay, and I think Patrick Mahomes would do a great job with them. I was thinking more and more about this. I wonder if in an alternate universe, Willie Gay Jr. would have been an all-pro running back because he's got really great speed. He's incredibly physical. Now, I have no idea if he's got the vision for it. It's a tough position to play. But I think there might be an alternate universe. That might actually be, of all the guys there that you think about that might do something, I think Willie Gay Jr. at running back would be the one that I'd be the most excited to watch with all that. And Mahomes would absolutely have the ability to lead them down the field to win an overtime victory. All right, let's get to some of the Twitter questions. Uncle Glenny, my good friend Glenn, he says, I'm thinking Josh Williams is going to see more of the share of the snaps as the third corner instead of Watson down the stretch. Would you agree, or do you think it's going to be more Watson? Had you asked me 3 weeks ago, I would have definitely said Watson. That said, the fact that they let Fenton go demonstrates a level of comfort with Williams' understanding of the system. And with Williams, I do think it was the understanding of the system that was holding him back. Much like Watson, he's got great size, great physicality. One thing that separates him from Watson, though, is he's a superior athlete. And that's just not something that Watson is. Now, Watson's done a very good job. He can test the ball well. He's physical on routes. He understands leverage. He seems to understand route concepts, but he's not a terrific athlete, doesn't have terrific change of direction skills, and that's not going to change necessarily. So I think there's a good chance you're right that the more the season goes along, the more you see Williams out there, just as he gets kind of caught up and then the physical ability starts to take over. That said, I don't think Watson's going to go down easy, and so that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. Norman P. Foreman says, with Saunders coming on, can you see him having production next to CJ and maybe playing the edge a few snaps because of his quickness, low paid level, and strength? Big fan of your work too. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. I don't see them putting Saunders on the edge, partly because they just don't have enough bodies on the interior right now. And they've got kind of a plethora of average-ish guys at the edge. They're already having Jonesy snaps at the edge in a limited capacity, and I don't think it would probably make much sense to rotate Saunders out there as well. I would love to see him out there more, though. I think he's better against the run right now than Derek Nottie. I actually wrote about him for the Chief of the North newsletter. It's something that you should really check out. In that the thing that Nottie brings to the table has always been being very stout at the point of attack. One problem is that he hasn't necessarily been as stout at the point of attack this year. Whereas Colin Saunders, that's not something that he was always great at, but it is something that he's improved at. And additionally, with Saunders, and this is in the article, you can go take a look at it again, the Chief of North newsletter, mnchiefsfan.substack.com or bit.ly/Seth really hates money. Thank you. Hat tip to Josh Briscoe every time for that one. But when you see on a snap like this, watch Saunders here moving down the line. And that initial swim that he puts on that attempted reach block, this doesn't seem like a terribly complicated thing to do. But being able to first make that first swim right there to keep the center from reaching him, which then, of course, means that he doesn't get slowed down, which means that the other blocker can't reach him either. It allows him to flow straight in the direction of the play. And because he's got really good speed, he's able to actually close in on the play and stuff it for minimal gain. This isn't the type of play that you generally see Derek Nottie make. It's just not his skill set. And so I would love to see Colin Saunders get on the field more. Go check out that article to read a little more about the way he moved the needle against the Titans in terms of the run game. I know a lot of people want to see him more in the pass rush situations. I think because they have a variety of guys in Karlaftis, Dana, Dunlap, and Clark that they're comfortable kind of rotating through on the edge. I just don't think, and then they also rotate some of those guys inside. Mike Dana actually might be a better rusher from the inside than he is from the outside, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if you're going to see as much of him on those snaps, but I'd like to see him against the run more. Dean says, what is your assessment of the Chiefs offensive coordinator play calling? I always die on the hill of the offense is by and large that's Andy Reid's baby. There's going to be some situational play calling stuff, but generally speaking, it's going to be Andy Reid stuff. Chiefs have the best offense in the league. Against the Titans, there were some frustrating moments. I haven't gotten to the Patrick Mahomes film review yet. That might not come until Saturday. Me and my family are doing some traveling, so we'll see when I'm able to get that stuff done. Because I'm coming down to the Chiefs game, by the way, for Chiefs Jags. So that should be fun to watch live. A couple of my kids are going to their first game. It's going to be exciting. So I've been happy overall with it. I think it's really easy anytime things go wrong to just say, oh, it's the play calling. I don't think against the Titans that was necessarily the problem, although Vrabel definitely he was in his bag in terms of figuring out what they were going to call with some of their usual kind of combo breakers, some of their screens, jet sweeps, some of the things that they use to get cheap, easy, free plays. Vrabel had them on that. He also did a good job causing Mahomes to second guess his reads. And so some of that you could say is on offensive play calling, but overall, I think it's been good this year. And I think it's largely, obviously a lot of credit should go to Eric Bieniemy for the success they've had, but overall, Andy Reid's proven over the years with coordinator after coordinator after coordinator that he's kind of the one with the secret sauce. Thor Woodinson asks, will people see that the offense is the limiting factor to this team? People keep pointing to leading the league in points in EPA, but it doesn't matter when compared to what they should be able to do. Does leading the league fix the Colts loss or the Titans near loss get an EPA ring? So, Thor, it sounds more like you have an opinion than a question, and it's an opinion that I disagree with. The reality is the offense, and I think something that would help would be spending more time really watching closely and paying attention to other top offenses, and you're going to see some of those same slog-type games. The Colts loss, for example, there's just some self-inflicted errors. The Titans game, same thing. Those are going to happen. You're never really going to have a team that has an offense that never gets slowed down. We tend to, looking back to 2018, we don't remember like the Chargers game where they got slowed down at times, or the Seattle Seahawks game where they didn't really put up as many points as they could have. And the only reason they put up the points they did is because Mahomes performed some miracles. We tend to only remember the counting numbers at the end of the year. Last year, same thing. They had games that there was a slog. There really is no such thing as an offense that puts up 40 per game and does it by putting it up 40 every single game, or puts up that 30 every single game. If you average 30 points a game, it's not because you're going 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. It's because you're going 30, 40, 20. And that's just how it works at the NFL level. The defenses are too good, and there's just there's just no way you're going to dominate every single week on offense. No one in the league's doing that this year. And so I would say, in terms of that being the limiting factor, when you've got one that's been consistently the best in the league and you got one that's consistently a little below average, it's really easy to say, well, this one could be way better. But the reality is, this is the one that's limiting the team more, in my opinion. One thing that is at least worth noting is the floor of the offense is definitely lower without Hill. Now, to be fair, they had some really low floor performances last year, but I think you're going to see it a little tougher to get out of a few of those slogs without Hill's ability to create plays. So in that sense, I would definitely agree with you. But overall, the offense has been really, really, really good. And not just in terms of EPA per play or whatever you want to look at it as, although that really is, I mean, that's literally how well they're moving the ball, which I don't know how else you gauge an offense if not on how well they move the ball. On film, they look good too. And so I think overall, because of our expectations for the offense, we're going to gauge it differently. Jiffy says, what do you think will happen with the running back room for the rest of the season as well as in the future? I think they're going to continue to try to get Pacheco touches. McKinnon's going to continue to get important touches. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to continue to get touches. Pure running back by committee. Steve Gray asks, how would you fix the run game? I'm actually working on an article about that right now. I looked at every single run play against the Titans. Part of it is, like, honestly, if you're looking at the Titans game, Trey Smith needs to play better. There were at least 3 different plays that if he hits his block, that springs them for a decent gain, maybe even a big gain. And it makes the entire thing look different if you just get one big run sprinkled in there, in terms of statistically speaking. I do think that they definitely need to improve their execution. Some of these insert concepts, some of these pulling concepts or trap concepts. I mean, some of the things that they're doing, they require there's certain blocks that have to get hit. And that's the thing with the run game is, you generally speaking have, you need 5 things to go right, 6 things, 7 things, 8 things to go right. If even one of them goes wrong, you end up with this stuff at the line of scrimmage. It's one of the reasons why it's easier to make yards passing the ball, because even if one thing goes wrong, it can be made up for by other guys. It's a lot harder to make up for what other guys do in the run game, because if the ball's handed off and the defender's there, the play is basically over. Whereas when you have Mahomes, you have some of the receivers the Chiefs have, including Kelsey, you can kind of make up for mistakes in the blocking game. So it's an execution issue to me. You should check out the article. It's going to be dropping some point today. Maybe by the time you're even watching this. Basically, it's just going to be called what happened to the Chiefs run game against the Titans, and I'm just going to break it down snap by snap, what went wrong on every single snap, to kind of get a general idea as what the problem was. John Wesley, John Wesley, hey, that's a little Nazarene Methodist humor for you. Spelled Jon though. In the Tampa Bay Super Bowl loss, Tony Romo recommended that Casey go to 12 personnel to both run and pass. Couldn't help but think about that against Tennessee during the 7 scoreless possessions. Do you think committing to run play action out of that may help with offensive consistency? I was surprised they didn't go there more against the Titans, but they did have some of those 12 personnel looks, and those got stuffed too. The Titans, for one, they've got the best run defense in the NFL, and that's something that I'm going to be writing about as well. They, Autry and Simmons are monsters. The other team gets paid too. Sometimes they just make good plays. Because we view everything from the context of the Chiefs, it's really easy to look at every play through their context. I do think that's something that they should do, but the problem with committing to the run game is, if it's not working, you're just committing to doing nothing. And so there's always going to be a give and take there. Honestly, if they just executed better with the exact same number of run plays, the run game would have looked just fine. Tyler asked, at season midpoint, has Justin Reed met your expectations? Would you prefer the 2021 version of Matthew or what you've seen the 2022 version of Reed? I would prefer the 2022 version of Reed to what we saw in 2021 out of Tyrann Mathieu. I talked about Reed a lot last week. So Tyler, you can go check out last week's. I actually talked about him quite a bit because there were a lot of questions about him. Charles Mott asked, do you think McDuffie can match up with Jamar Chase in a couple weeks? No, no one can. Jamar Chase is not a receiver that you want to consistently put one guy one-on-one. And it doesn't matter if that guy is Trent McDuffie or Jalen Ramsey. Eventually, if it's just constant one-on-one, he's going to get got. And so I think he can match up with him in the sense of getting the assignment done, being right there in coverage, whether it's zone, man, I think he'll be right there with him. But odds are with Jamar Chase, you're going to get mossed a couple times. And that's just there's no one corner answer to that. The last guy that was really an answer to that sort of thing was Darrell Revis, because even other guys, Champ Bailey, other great corners, Jalen Ramsey, they don't necessarily follow guys constantly. Sauce Gardner looks like maybe he might be that guy, but that's also a little situational as well in terms of pass rush and that sort of thing. So it's going to be a lot more important for them that the pass rush get home, that it hassle Burrow, and that they just stay disciplined in their assignments and tackle well. That's been their big problem against the Bengals when they've given up some of those big plays. Yeah, some of them is just guys getting mossed, but some of them are also, should be 10-yard gains and they turn into 50-yard gains. And that's when the disaster occurs. King Sangre asks, your favorite cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Also, are we re-signing Orlando Brown Jr. and at what cost? I would be surprised at this point, unless he closes the season out in really strong fashion, if he were back in Kansas City next year, because I don't think the ask is going to be something the Chiefs are going to be willing to meet. Breyer asks, does Niang realistically have any shot at taking his job back this late into the season? Wiley and pass pro gives me nightmares. I would be surprised if he had a chance at getting his job back at this point in the season. Wiley is up and down. It's been a little more down this year, whereas it was a little more up last year. But I think it's hard to unseat a guy midway through the year. I think Niang would have to demonstrably outperform him in practice to get that opportunity even. Jacob Norcross asks, does San Francisco realistically have the space to extend Bosa? If not, should the Chiefs try and trade for him? Yeah, they can. There's always, with the NFL, there's always money in the banana stand for elite players. I would be absolutely shocked if they did not keep Bosa long term. I mean, he's just so crucial to what they do defensively. They rotate, other pass rushers around him. Armstead's a big part of what they do, but I mean, a lot of it centers on his basically unblockableness, for lack of a better term. And I would just say, in terms of trying to trade for a guy like that, in a world where Bradley Chubb is going for a first and change, Nick Bosa, I mean, what is he? 2 firsts and a second, 3 firsts. I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze there for anyone but a quarterback, honestly, even for a great, great, great pass rusher. Chiefs calculus, why do the Chiefs suck at running the ball? Read the Chief of the North newsletter. That's going to be in there, why they sucked against the Titans at least. All right, our final question from T Money, apparently, because I think that's a money emoticon. I'm 37 years old, so way to go to continue asking. I appreciate this. He asks, do you think so many teams are going all in right now because they see the upcoming cap flexibility and positioning of the Chiefs? Basically, he's asking, so you're asking, from what I'm reading, is are teams going all in now because they know that this is kind of the last year that the Chiefs lack flexibility against the cap, whereas they kind of have a lot more of a clean slate 2023 moving forward. It's one of the benefits for them just kind of eating the full Patrick Mahomes amount. Everyone expected them to kind of do the restructuring, which I think they might do next year, because then that can buy them a whole slew of space. It would have been able to buy them less space. Every year there would have been a slightly diminishing return on that, kicking the can down the road a little bit more. But by just sitting out 1 year and letting that cap hit just be its entirety, they can save more money in 2023. So, and then they also, I mean, they've got a few things that they can do. I mean, with Frank Clark, and they can extend Chris Jones. I think, what was it? I clicked like 3 buttons on Over the Cap's cap calculator, and the Chiefs had like $80 million in cap space. Now they have to fill out the roster as well. So, at least, if you're even talking just roster fill out, I mean, that's 20 million right there. But that still leaves a ton of money. And not just that, because it's not just how much money is available in 2023, it's how much money is available in the future. I do think teams probably see that. And they also see the fact that Mahomes' contract is going to go from a slight liability, not in terms of his play versus his contract, but just in terms of cap stuff in general. It's going to go from a slight liability to an advantage as every year goes along. And, teams like the Chargers, the Bengals, the Ravens, they have to pay their quarterback. Even the Bills, they've already paid Josh Allen once, but his contract, I believe, was a 4-year deal. And so it's going to come due a lot sooner. So a lot of that's not necessarily them looking at what the Chiefs are doing, but them looking at their own cap situation and understanding they have a finite amount of time to make really aggressive moves. That's why the Chargers are making so many moves. It's not completely working out how they'd hope, although they're hanging around in a crowded AFC. But it's more they understand that they've got a limited amount of time. This is Justin Herbert's third year. Generally speaking, you got to sign the quarterback after that third year, and then you end up with one more cheap year, and then it goes up. So it's the time for them to go all in. All right, that's what we have time for. I appreciate all the questions. Do all the YouTube things, please, and understand what I mean by that. I would love it if you would just read my mind. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully, I run into some of you at the Chiefs Jags game. I'm going to be there with my wife and two of my kiddos. Couldn't be more excited. It's just going to be a great week to be a Chiefs fan, folks.